Does Israel have an immigration policy? Hi, my name is Joshua Pex. I'm an Israeli immigration lawyer for more than 10 years, and many times I hear in the media or from other people that there's no immigration policy of the state of Israel. Well, this on one hand is true, but on the other hand not. In general, it's a little bit complicated, so let me try and explain in very short and simple terms. First of all, it's true that it's not as if the Israeli government gets together and has a committee or something like that and says this will be the immigration policy to Israel and passes a law or something like that. This actually is a very naive way of thinking of how the law actually works in practice. So this doesn't happen. In general, it can be said that Israel was created to be the homeland of the Jewish people. We do have the law of return, which in general makes it much easier to immigrate to Israel for anyone who is Jewish or a child or grandchild of a Jew together with their spouse or partners. On the other hand, if you're not Jewish and want to immigrate to Israel as a person married to Israeli or any types of visa or trying to get residency in Israel, it will be much more difficult, longer, more expensive, much more bureaucracy. So this in general can be said as some guidelines. On the other hand, there are not many laws for immigration to Israel. There are very few laws. This is also due to the fact that the Israeli government already for many years has been made up of a coalition of different parties. Sometimes the parties are very different from each other, and it's very difficult to make decisions and legislate laws that all these parties will agree upon. So what happens is two things. On the one hand, the Minister of Interior has a lot of authority, a lot of power to make regulations, and it can be said that with immigration to Israel, there are very few laws, but there are many procedures that the Minister of Interior produces, and they're very influential with everything that has to do with immigration to Israel. Every visa or different kinds of status in Israel have their own procedure. On the other hand, when the government doesn't succeed to pass laws, the power and the ability of the court system becomes stronger. So you have immigration tribunals, you have the district court, and especially the Supreme Court as the High Court of Justice make many important decisions with everything that has to do with immigration. So immigration in Israel and all over the world is sometimes a very sensitive issue politically. Politicians are many times very aware of how the public perceives immigration, and they can use it. You have it in Europe, you have it in the States, and also in Israel there is sometimes the notion that we want to keep immigrants out. You know, they're taking jobs from locals. Maybe they're even dangerous. I mean, they're different, they're strangers. So also in Israel you have some of these notions in the public, also some political parties. So in general, it's a very sensitive issue, very difficult for the government to actually make decisions and have a clear policy. So what happens is that the influence of the courts rises because cases come to the court, the government doesn't pass a law. So you have some cases that for many years have been pending in the government doesn't decide, like with conversions by the reformed and conservative movements in Israel being recognized. 15 years this case was pending. Finally, the Supreme Court makes a decision, and then suddenly the government says the court is too activist. Why does the court take what is supposed to be the responsibility of the government? But actually the court, in my opinion, makes the decision because the government lacks the unity and ability even to make these kind of decisions. So, does Israel have a clear immigration policy? There are two sides, again, to this story. On the one hand, I would say that there isn't a very clear immigration policy. There is a general understanding that really it's easier to immigrate to Israel if you're Jewish or related to someone Jewish. On the other hand, it can be said that yes, the policy actually develops according to regulations of the Ministry of Interior and according to decisions of the Supreme Court, according to actually what happens in reality, cases that are brought from the bottom up, according to what happens actually in Israeli society. Israel is part of a global community of countries. We see more and more people moving from country to country, and Israel is no exception. So the policy actually develops according to what happens in reality. So as always, thank you for listening and watching. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact us.